Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another series review. Yes, we are late and a dollar short, but I'm talking about the amazing show on FX slash Hulu, The Bear. First, we're going to talk about season two. Then you're going to have to stay tuned because we may go and double back down and do a season three because the season three is available right now. But we can't get to the meat and potatoes until we get to season two first. So I have here somebody that we've collaborated for years now. Like actually one of our biggest videos
Yeah.
went viral years and years ago. She is accompanying me for both sets of season two and season three. I have my good friend Riley. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me on to talk about the show. I love it so much.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is an insane show.
Mhm.
But it's so wholesome and yet at the same exact time it's so refined. But let's kind of get right into it. I mean, season two for me, to be quite honest, is near perfect.
Mm.
I think it is better than the first season, and I think that they showcase the characters through this real rich evolution. Characters like Marcus that you see here, who gets to really truly travel and kind of come into his own as not just a chef, but an innovative chef. And
Mhm.
then when we think about like my ship of this show,
Yeah. Okay, I thought it was just me. I almost
no,
didn't
it's
want to
not.
say it.
It's not. It is
Yeah.
not just you. It is
Yeah.
absolutely my ship. It makes
Yeah.
no sense how much of a
Yeah.
ship, and it may be
Yeah.
because Ao and Jeremy just have such great chemistry. But Sydney and Carmen are in game for me, so I'll leave it at that. But watching them progress is not just you know pupil and Padawan master and whatnot. It's no, they are partners and they're having to respectively deal with each other's stuff while they are trying to build something impossible. But even like a character like Richie actually gets a real evolution as well. Like I think
Oh,
honestly,
this episode
sports
was so good.
is I think it's episode 7 is actually underlooked because that was the first time we see Richie not just care, but he kind of came into his own. I feel like since
Yeah.
Forks or since episode 7, Richie never was the same, for better
Oh
or
yeah.
for worse. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
I'm done rambling. What did you think about the Bear season 2?
Well, I'm gonna piggyback off of the last thing you brought up, which is the episode 7, which is when Richie stages at Ever. I think the restaurant is called. I love that episode so much. It's maybe my second favorite episode of this season. The Christmas one is probably my favorite, just because of how much more chaotic it is. But I really, really like that episode with Richie because, he's going through like this existential crisis where he doesn't know like where his life is going, what he is like really the best at, and or what is going to make him feel good. And then he goes to work at another restaurant for a week and realizes that making other people feel good makes him feel good. And that is a very relatable thing for me. That's definitely something that um I've uh had to come around and find, to kind of bring me out of a rut is, when I'm doing things for other people, it ultimately makes me feel better about myself. So I thought that was just such a beautiful episode because he saw exactly how happy he was making by listening to them. And a big theme of this show is communication and listening to each other. Um, oh, I'll get more into that when we review season 3, though.
Yeah.
And as far as what you said with, Sid and Carmy being partners, it's yes, they're definitely, partners and as far as this restaurant goes, but Carmy, seems like he has some tendencies that he can't really let go of, and he's also, making too many decisions, like, he starts to make some decisions on his own, and that makes, Sydney very uncomfortable, which makes a lot of sense. because there was an episode where uh, he was supposed to meet up with her in Chicago at different restaurants so that they can try different foods in different restaurants and kind of find some inspiration. And then Claire ends up calling him, and he uh, just kind of bails on her. Um, and that was more or less right after she somebody had told her, like, she saw an old friend at one of those restaurants there, and they were like, just make sure that you trust your partner. And then when she came back from all of that, he or she saw that they had like torn down a wall or something, and she's like, oh, so all these decisions are, there are decisions being made without me, you know. So and one last thing I'll say about them being endgame is Io Adebari did have something to say about that in response to a journalist. She was like, I think they would both need a lot of therapy before that could ever happen. And I think that that is very, very true. Sydney is better at, you know, reading people's emotions and, you know, figuring out what they need. Um, and Carmi is just a little bit too much in his head.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I'm gonna save my thoughts about them for later. I think it's a
Yeah.
good segue to talk about a new introduced character, and I do think that the actress did a good job. And that's Claire. Claire is the embodiment of this light. She, I think they use this line later on in another season, is the peace. Molly Gordon plays a role of Claire, and she is a nurse. She used to know Carmy. You find out, of course, in like episode, this is probably one of the best episodes of the season, or one of the best episodes of any show. This is Fishes in episode 6, of kind of how he always thought about her, and they've always thought of her as being his it kind of person. And she
Hmm.
really does kind of break him out of his shell and kind of like be selfish for himself for a second because he's always so much in his head. The issue with that is that he's already initiated an impossible task of the deadline of getting this store up and running and
Hmm.
structurally sound. And
Hmm.
he promised that to Sid. He promised that to his sister Sugar. And even though she she helps him, she really does, I think, on an emotional level to be able to breathe. But it's weird because he was already doing like his own therapy. He was already going and being more outgoing to the rest of the crew. And I felt like he was naturally getting out of himself. And it's weird because when he got into a relationship with Claire in this, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is good for him. But you find out that that wasn't necessarily invoked by him. This is something that he also knew that his brother Mikey was trying to push. The other people were trying to push for him. So it's yet
Yeah.
again another thing that he feels like I've got to preserve. I've got to kind of maintain because people suggested that to me. And
Yeah.
he's always trying to appease everybody, but he fails everybody ultimately because of that. And so I think that when he initially saw her, I don't think it was that he had an inadequacy complex. I think that part of him was torn whether or not to give her his number or to completely avoid it, because not just the responsibility of the bear or creation of the bear, but I think that it was more so when you think about when you're figuring out like the levels of their relationship, how it began, like
Hmm.
it was also tied to a lot of strain because of the relationship with his family and his brother. And
Yeah.
so I always kind of assess that like, man, Claire is good for him, but she's also the red herring here. She's the
Mhm.
thing that is the catalyst to his emotional preservation, but maybe not. Um, and I don't know, it just sucks. I feel bad for the actress
Yeah.
because I was like, you just in the way, bro. Like I hate to say it, like I love that you're helping him, but you're not. Because some of the things that
Yeah.
she would say was like, you know what, it's okay for you to spend time to yourself, but she didn't understand the levels of what was going on with him mentally.
Mhm.
She didn't understand his emotional triggers. She didn't. I really don't think Claire understood how traumatized
Exactly.
um, Carmy actually is. And I think the only people that come close to understanding it is because they all deal with their own trauma too. Is really, um, I think the 3 people that's closest to him,
Yeah.
and it's weird because Sugar, I love Sugar in his season because we get
Yeah.
to understand who Sugar is. I feel like the first season they kind of introduced her, but it
Yeah.
didn't really get to know her. In this
Hmm.
season, she gets to really be his big sister. She
Oh
gets
yeah.
to really be there for him, walking through this with him, and getting the understanding that she loves this too. It's not just because of Mikey that she's in this. It's not just because of Carmy. She gets something out of it as well. And I think that the actress playing the role of Sugar, she's really talented, man. She's got this
Oh my
natural
gosh.
ability to be able to be sweet and bubbly and then very quickly striking with her words. And I love that because each one of the family members have that small little characteristic.
Hmm.
But I think that she's maybe the only person that understands Carmen's full trauma because she's dealing with it herself. We didn't understand the
Yeah.
levels of that, but she definitely
Yeah, and we can get more into that in the season 3 review, as far as the trauma they're dealing with, because there was something really interesting that came up that I meant to look into a bit more. The actress, I agree, she's fantastic. It was I was racking my brain trying to figure out where I had seen her from. She's actually she used to be on SNL, and I feel like comedy actors, yeah, Abby Elliott on an SNL, yeah, the comedy actors tend to be really, really freaking good because it's hard to get those punchlines right, and
yeah.
you just have to be able to hit every emotional note just right just to get the punchline to like stick the way it does. So I think that's part of why she's such a great actress. She did SNL for a few years. um I love her. She's such a bright spot of the show. She's just a very sweet person, um dealing with her own childhood trauma, and it's very sad to watch in the fishes episode, just you know, her as a daughter trying her best to take care of her mother as if she is the mom. Um, and I know there are a lot of, you know, family dynamics where, the children can relate to that, to having to, kind of step up and be the parent. And then her mom, like, has a tantrum when she keeps asking her if she's okay. And it's like, um, kind of reminds you of like in the cycle of human life, we're born needing to be taken care of, and then that's kind of how we end up at the same time. Um, yeah, at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And um speaking of mothers, oh my gosh, Marcus.
Oh
Um
yeah.
Marcus, it's so weird because like the first season, I was like, man, Marcus is a little sleeper hit. But when you
Yeah.
get to see Marcus explore, right, and
Hmm.
really hone his craft, and it's interesting. There's things about Will in this. He's I think he's only in one episode.
Yeah.
And I think the name of this episode was Honeydew. I think it's episode 4.
Yeah.
Um, but he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he had his start as a young kid actor in
Was it
uh
Narnia?
Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe.
Yeah.
He was the annoying little kid that was in the fourth movie, I think. And it's so weird because
Yeah.
he's grown so big.
Yeah.
But when Marcus kind of gets lessons from him, you start to notice that Marcus has this innate ability of getting people out of their shell and communicating, and he's just
Hmm.
so openly loving and
Hmm.
wholesome and yet strong, and he maintains his own personality. He never breaks his personality, and even like in this season, like he also deals with the fact of him dealing with his emotions when it comes to a certain somebody that we're shipping for Carmy.
Oh yeah.
Um, and he kind of lets that go throughout the season, but at the same exact time, he hones his craft so well. And I don't know, that episode with him was one of my favorites. Like
Yeah.
it's just so wholesome and
Hmm.
yet so real because if you're passionate about something, you're going to try to figure out how and what way I can make this a reality, no matter what it takes, no matter if I'm sleeping on a boat, No matter if I'm, feeding a a ghost cat, no matter
Yeah.
if I'm in a pastry place with a guy that barely speaks to me, I'm gonna figure out. And even in that episode, like he randomly saw a guy like dying. Basically, the guy had
Yeah.
fell over and like he
Yeah.
was like caught on something. He pulled him up. He couldn't speak a word
Mhm.
of English, and the guy just kind of came up to him. He just embraced him,
Yeah, because he
and I
saved
was
his
like,
life.
"That's so." To me,
Mhm.
I know now it's foreshadowing, because you never know, when something's gonna happen, but somebody can pick you back up, and
Mhm.
like all you can do is kind of just for a minute just kind of sit with it and then keep moving forward, even if you hurt, even if you're bad. Because he was like asking, he's like, didn't you go to a hospital? The guy was like, it's okay, like I'm gonna keep going. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
crazy writing foreshadowing for
Yeah.
Marcus as a character, because he is that strong. He is gonna have to go through a
Mhm.
certain trials by the end of the season, especially the last call in the
Yeah.
last episode, which was so hard to
Yeah.
watch. But
Mhm.
yeah, Marcus was amazing in this.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many good things in this, man.
It was so great. It was beautiful. I thought for Marcus too, like, he it can suck sometimes when you're working at a job and you want to do the best that you can, and you're not quite maybe reaching your full potential, but then to
Mhm.
have your superiors validate you, validate your passion by lending you these books. You read all the books. What else can I do? I'll send you to freaking Copenhagen. That's amazing. He's very fortunate to be in a position where he has supportive bosses, and I think he's very grateful of that. And I think he's just a very grateful human being in general. Like you said, wholesome. Um, we love Marcus.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because, like you said, um, as much as Carmen is so to himself, like he
Hmm.
is like that supervisor's just like tunnel vision,
Hmm.
not bad, but just tunnel vision. And if you really look at it, like he said, Marcus, Tina, um, his own cousin, like everybody, he set them in their perfect positions to
Hmm.
excel,
Yeah.
to be better. Like
Hmm.
Richie, like Carmen set that up. We
Hmm.
got freaking Olivia Coleman is the chef
Is
that
she Chef Terry?
huh?
Is she Chef Terry?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Olivia freaking Coleman is the person that, like, I mean, it's so I'm saying that
Yeah.
Carmen, even though in his own way, it seems like he's separating everybody out, he really is putting them all in a position to excel. And it was weird because Tina was always been like worked together with Sydney really well, and Sydney kind of advocated for Tina last season.
After the first couple episodes, yeah.
Right. But in this season, Tina is ready. She's like, send
Hmm.
me to whatever classroom. But she's working with Ibrahim. Ibrahim is old school. He's like, bro, I can't do this, bro. Like he got
Hmm.
scared. And Tina just kept moving. She's like, I got too
Hmm.
much to lose. I got to keep going. But again, Carmy set that up. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to know how much Carmy has been exposed to, that he'd have the wherewithal to put them in these positions. Because I guess because he's gone through it.
Yeah.
It's just when he's doing things and he's not focused, you don't see the effort that he's actually really trying to put into everyone. He really is trying to make sure that everybody's excelling and exceeding where they've been. So
Yeah.
everybody is in a higher level place. It's just the way that he goes about doing things is the problem. And this is where I'm going to kind of fork in the road, because I think the last thing we need to end on is probably like episode forks, but or not forks, but God, fishes.
Yeah.
Um, so the last episode, when Carmy and Sydney were underneath the table,
Yeah.
and at that point, they were at their wits end. And shout out to Robert Townsend as
Her
Sydney's dad.
dad.
He's a freaking goat.
Yeah.
Meteor Man himself was
Yeah.
anyway.
His
Not gonna.
daughter, by the way, also the goat. She was on a Black Lady sketch show. Sky Townsend.
Yep.
Hilarious woman.
Yep.
Hilarious woman. Yeah.
But there was a scene where they were trying. He noticed like the chairs needed some help, and she kind of went under there with him. And I think that was the first time since honestly since the last season, the last episode of last season, where they were actually really truly vulnerable. And that was when I was realized like this is really deep because he basically was like, I cannot and would not do this without you.
Yeah.
Literally. Like he was like, I cannot do this without you. And it's crazy because
Yeah.
he had an anxiety attack. He was like panicking outside and he was thinking back to Claire, thinking about Claire, but there was a connection with his past, a connection with his trauma. Every time he thought about Sydney, he was able to refocus. Just thinking about Sydney, he was able to refocus. And I think he was
Huh.
articulating that as best he could in his own words at that time. But the weird thing was when she kind of communicated back to him, she also was very vulnerable and let him know like I appreciate that. Like, thank you for your honesty with that. This is how I've been feeling. This is why I'm scared. And we have to work this out together. And unfortunately and fortunately, he got locked in the closet.
He did.
My man got locked in the closet.
He got
And
locked in the cooler.
he left her. He left her to try to, she had to figure it all out.
Mm-hmm.
She had to be the one to work it all out yet again. And she dealt with her own panic attack and anxiety because she didn't have him. Like he wasn't there. And it wasn't anybody's fault. But I think with any relationship, that's going to happen. And I think that's where probably AO's comment and sentiment comes into play to me because they do both individually need therapy, like actual real therapy to build some kind of foundation. But I think the bones are there. The bones, I think, are actually really there. They really do need each other to make this work. We'll talk about more of that in the third season. But for that moment, that was one of that out of all the moments with Claire, that was the most beautiful moment, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be sentimental.
No, that was a good one. I don't know. I'm kind of two minds because on one hand, I feel like maybe Sid and Carmy will be endgame, maybe they won't. And I also really like Claire. I think that I think you were saying, you said something along the lines of she's not what Carmy needs right now, and it's like she could be good for Carmy if he let her, and if he needs therapy. I don't know. It's I think like you said, like he's way too traumatized. She didn't know how traumatized he was to enter into a healthy relationship. His priorities are on, focused on his restaurant's success and not on his relationship with another person. Which is why immediately when he got locked in the freezer, he blamed Claire and his relationship with Claire, and he called it a complete waste of time. He said no amount of good is worth how terrible this feels, like how terrible, like falling short of his potential feels, so and I mean, we know exactly where all of that trauma came from. Talk about it more in the next one. But yeah, I mean, as much as I would like to see Io and Carmy come together, I think it's inevitable that he and Claire will reconcile before that happens.
I got a theory on that, but I'm gonna leave that alone for now.
Okay.
I'm gonna save that for the third season.
Right.
The way that this ended. Never mind. I'm gonna say that for the third season.
Okay.
So yeah, let's talk about the Emmy award-winning moment, the hat trick. When you got amazing talent like Sarah Paulson. God,
I love her.
everybody was in that freaking thing.
Yes, and John Mulaney. I love Sarah Paulson. So she was my favorite cameo in there, and then Bob Odenkirk. Um, and then John Mulaney just always brings such a good vibe to everything he's in. Jamie Lee Curtis, we've known her since we were children as a fantastic actress, and she killed this role. She absolutely killed it. This scene with the fork, oh my god. Um, I was torn between like having a secondhand panic attack and just like laughing my ass off the whole time. uh, it's just so great. I love John Bernthal, love Bob Odenkirk. They're them just like bouncing off of each other in this was just like just so good, just so enjoyable. Very heated, and it's just there's nothing better than like fantastic actors fantastically acting out a fantastically written scene, and that's what that was.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it was phenomenal
Hmm.
because the thing about Fishes is this is the first time we've been able to really see how Mikey was,
Mm.
because we've only seen Mikey in connection to the store, um to like his restaurant. We never really seen him try to be the peace giver or be the person that's the in between the
Hmm.
older son and kind of what he does to reconcile everybody's issues. Like you could see real easily how his interaction with Sugar, he's trying to let her know to be careful. Don't probe your mom too much or she's going to go off. Like,
Hmm.
don't need her too much or you're going to get thrown off.
Hmm.
He's trying to allow Carmen to understand, like, you can't be so absorbed and obsessed in this because I'm not mentally where I need to be, nor is the store. Like he kept on talking about the store, but he wanted to tell Carmen, I'm not good right now.
Hmm.
I can't
Hmm.
do this for what you're trying to achieve. And it's not
Hmm.
because I don't want you to. I don't want to bring you down because I'm so depressed. Um, and like everything threaded around that so well, because even down to, you know how like you have the younger son always um tries to be the one that appeases to make everybody find peace.
Hmm.
His head goes, how can I make everything perfect? How can I be there for my mom and her craziness to make sure everybody doesn't lose it? And I
Yeah.
think that the last scene when he's looking at the freaking fishes, part of him is like, man, this looks so perfect, but this is my fault. Some kind of way, the way that his look was is that some kind of way this is my fault. And it had nothing to do with him. He is nothing
Yeah.
he could have done to control it. But that is a part of his psychosis. That is a part of his issue. And unfortunately, Sugar and Mikey are no different. I think the thing that came out of this was so surprising to me was to watch Richie so happy. Richie was so happy with his wife.
Yeah.
Like they were so good together.
Yeah.
And I think when you go back and see, another episode in third season we'll talk about later, like how much Richie was trying to take care of Mikey and how
Hmm.
that probably laid a unfortunate hole in his own relationship with his family. Which is why he feels like I bled and sweat here. I'm entitled to this because I sacrificed too. Because he was just so happy, and it's just interesting because even when he was trying to talk to God, I spaced on his name. Um,
Uncle Jimmy.
yeah, Uncle
Yeah.
Jimmy, Oliver Platt's character. He was
Mhm.
trying to get the job, and he tried to say it on the
Yeah.
low, and he
Yeah.
wife, unfortunately, and Uncle
Yeah.
Jimmy could have literally aired him out, but he didn't. It's just so weird to see how far they've come as
Props
far
to
as
Uncle Jimmy, yo. But
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
it's yeah, everything about that man. And I think the thing that was so fascinating is the absence of the dad.
Yeah.
Because I thought Bob Erdenkirk was their actual biological dad, and I was like, oh wait, no, they look at him like a freeloader. Um,
Yeah. Because
and
he's like an uncle who married in, right?
yeah, and
I think he was. Yeah.
he ain't no good. he
He's
ain't no
rude.
good.
He's one rude mofo.
He ain't no good. And
Like
it's
damn.
crazy because those same things it makes me scared for Carmy moving down the line because those same exact moments of somebody telling me you're no good, you're dirt, you're trash, the same exact thing that led Mikey down to the road that he went to.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and he
Uh,
internalized all of it. And
yeah.
just that was just a lot. Um,
It was
but
a lot.
but the dad not being there, I don't know. I did they really define what happened to the dad? Did he leave?
No,
Did
I
he
think
die? Like
they have never actually said. I don't know. I have a feeling that he left.
that's the
I
way
have
I
a
that's
feeling
how
that
I
he left.
perceive it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think he left, and then, that might be why Carm has a little bit of, you know, residual guilt over, kind of abandoning his family for his career for a little bit. But yeah, what you were saying about Mikey, and this is the first time we really get to see him. It's 100% true. Before that, we only saw him in flashbacks when he was at the beef, smiling, like being jovial, not really saying much at all. Um, we like saw a letter that he had left for Carmy. That was it. But and we were just supposed to, like, we were given that version of him, knowing like this is the guy who took his own life. But the episode Fishes is where we saw that side of him, and like his trauma and all of the chaos around him, that led him that pushed him further into a drinking problem, and led him to do what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really want to talk about season 3. Oh my god, so bad.
Yeah. No. 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 No.
Yeah,
No.
I know. I know. Um and then what else?
I mean,
Uh,
Donna. I
Yeah.
mean, the source of a lot of the mental instability comes from her being on very shaky ground. Like
Mhm.
she plays it to me perfectly because you don't know what will set her off.
Yeah.
And you know how like some people you're in a room with and you're like, oh, don't do this. You don't know if you touching the clock will set her off. You
And
don't know if you saying good job will set her off. And
yeah.
these kids, which are now grown adults, are still trying to navigate that. And it's weird because she still plays favorites. Carmy was
Mhm.
helping her the whole entire time. She started calling him Mikey.
Yeah.
And she's demeaning Sugar right in front of everybody.
Mhm.
Like a lot of her resentment, probably because of the dad leaving or dying, is projected onto them, unfortunately. And a part of it
Mhm.
is she has an inadequacy complex because she feels like no matter how hard she works, it's not going to be good enough because I couldn't provide with a full, stable family. I think that's foundationally a part of the issue, but
Mm.
she's not gotten the help that she needs mentally and emotionally. Either
No.
way, you look at the very last episode with Carmy in like a cage, essentially, and all that starts to bleed over the same exact way. No
Mhm.
matter what good he did throughout the whole entire season, it was just blown up. The way it wasn't even so much him blowing up on Claire. I think the worst thing that he did was him blowing up on Richie. Richie
Mm. Yeah.
has come a long way. And like he was like talking so down, like everybody was saying Richie to do this. Even Richie was saying like nobody thinks I can do this. Everybody thinks I'm dirt. Carmen was saying no, no, no. I got you, cousin. It's okay. I love
Mhm.
you, cousin. And in his moment of weakness, he said some stuff that he can't take back. And on top of that, like Richie, instead of being the normal Richie we see, he's like, "I love you, cousin." Like,
Yeah.
straight up. Like he said it twice, and I was like,
Mhm.
"So well acted."
Yeah.
The same exact way that his mom be doing stuff, and it's unfortunate, but it's real. I think that's the reason why the show is so good. It's so freaking real.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Also, just to add a tidbit of information, because I did go out of my way to Google it. They don't say it in the show, but Dee Dee is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Makes sense.
which is literally being on edge all the time. You know, small things can set you off. You have very black and white thinking. Yeah, and any child being raised by somebody with untreated BPD, you know, is going to end up either like Sugar, Mikey, or Carmy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a very real episode. I loved the when shows really are like unafraid to tackle the realities of mental health and how that can affect a family and not just the person going through it. Um, so that's one of the things I really appreciate about this show for sure.
Yeah. But again, if I had to rate this season, this to me was a freaking 10 out of 10 season.
Yeah,
This was A plus quality.
yeah.
I didn't think that they could get any better coming off the first season, and
Mhm.
they freaking crushed it to me. So,
Yeah.
what were your final thoughts and rating for season 2?
I would honestly agree. It's pretty close to a 10 out of 10. It didn't have a single moment where it, you know, felt slow at all, even if it did technically slow down at certain points. You know, every single part of it was just so enjoyable. Um, we meet another Fack this season. We meet Ted Fack, right? I don't think he was in season 1.
Oh
And
yeah,
he's so
Ricky.
great.
Ricky is funny.
Yeah, well, I thought his name was Ted because there's Neil and there's Ted. Ted is
Is it?
the yeah,
I thought it was
or is it
Ricky.
Ricky? I don't know.
Wait, hold
I
on.
thought it was Ted Fack.
It may be. It may be.
Hold
I
on,
might be wrong.
the facts the bear.
Oh, is it Theo?
Yeah, Ted.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. You're
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
You're right. I was thinking about
yeah,
the
him.
actor's name. His
Yeah,
name in real
no,
life is Ricky.
no,
Yeah.
and it's like every single time like the facts are on screen, it's like absolutely nothing is going on with the story. Just about absolutely nothing. Um, and I don't care. I love it.
Was this the season that a certain
No,
Okay,
that's
all
next season.
right.
That's next season. So we'll talk more about him. We'll talk more about him.
All right. You can't see me. All right.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I think that wraps it up. We got to get ready to talk about some more Bear. Thank
Yes.
you so much, Rai, for being here.
Yeah.
You tell everybody where they can find your content?
Yeah. Twitch.tv/onlyxanchors. And I now have a YouTube account under the exact same name. My first video is up. Go check it out. Good vibes.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah.
Until next time, you guys, we are out. Go and check out The Bear. It's available on Hulu, FX, and every other place you can find because it is freaking dope. We'll be back for season 3. Peace out, everybody.
Filing out the top of the I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing on my mind. Oh Lord.